The trail was steep, but Anna didn't mind. She had hiked these woods countless times, the familiar crunch of leaves and the cool breeze of the forest air always offering a sense of peace she couldn't find anywhere else. The mountains stood tall around her, their peaks covered in mist, as if hiding secrets she was yet to uncover. This wasn't just a hike, it was her escape, her time to think, to process, to leave behind the chaos of her day-to-day life and let nature remind her of the simpler things. Today, however, wasn't like her usual solitary treks. There was an unsettling tension in the air, a weight she couldn't shake. Anna had always been an avid hiker, but today something felt off. The trail, usually so well-defined, felt less familiar. She noticed the shift in the forest, the absence of bird calls, the silence of the usual rustle of small creatures in the underbrush. It was as though the whole forest was holding its breath. Anna shook off the unease, telling herself it was just her imagination, but the prickling sensation on the back of her neck didn't go away. As she rounded a bend in the trail, her eyes caught a movement, a flash of brown. Her heart skipped in her chest. The bear was massive, its form blending into the woods, and it seemed to be moving slowly, with an almost unnatural lethargy. Its fur was matted, its body thin. It was too thin. Anna knew the signs of an animal in distress when she saw them. The bear stumbled forward, its eyes glazed and unfocused. It didn't seem to notice Anna at first, but when it did, it froze. Their gazes locked, and Anna could see the pain and fear in the bear's eyes. It was starving, clearly on the brink of collapse. The sight made her stomach twist. She had read about the struggles of wildlife, especially during harsh winters, but seeing it up close was a completely different experience. Anna didn't hesitate. She reached into her backpack, pulling out a bag of trail mix she had packed for herself. She had no idea if a bear would eat what she had, but it was all she had. She tore the bag open, scattering the mixture across the ground in front of her. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the raw empathy she felt for the creature. To her surprise, the bear, despite its exhaustion, moved forward slowly, sniffing at the food. It hesitated for a moment, eyeing her warily. Anna stayed still, not daring to make a move, not wanting to frighten it away. She could feel the weight of the moment, the delicate balance of trust between them. The bear, unsure but desperate, began to eat. Anna watched in silence as the bear fed, each bite slow and cautious, as though it didn't quite trust that this food was real. It didn't take long for the bear to finish, and when it did, it seemed to relax a little. The tension in its body seemed to ease, and it looked at Anna again, not with fear or aggression, but with an almost tired acceptance. For a moment, they stood there, locked in the quiet understanding of two creatures, one wild and one human, in the same place at the same time. The bear looked at her one last time before turning and slowly retreating into the trees, its movements sluggish but purposeful. Anna stayed where she was, watching it go, her heart heavy. She couldn't help but wonder if she had done enough, if that small act of kindness would be enough to save the bear. She stood there for a long while, long after the bear had disappeared from view, the memory of its eyes etched into her mind. That night, Anna couldn't shake the image of the bear from her thoughts. She lay in her tent, the sound of the wind rustling the trees outside, and she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of responsibility. She had fed the bear, but she wondered if it would be enough to keep it alive. The forest was harsh, and survival was never guaranteed. She had seen it many times before. Animals struggling, fighting for survival in an environment that offered little mercy. She closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come easily. The bear's image lingered, a reminder of the delicate balance between man and nature, and how fragile it all was. Months passed, and Anna returned to the same trail, her hikes now a regular part of her life again. Each time, she found herself looking into the woods, wondering if she might see that same bear. But it never came. The forest remained just as it always had, quiet, still, indifferent to the small acts of kindness one person could offer. It was early spring when Anna found herself back on the same trail again. The world around her was starting to thaw, the remnants of snow giving way to new growth. The forest smelled of damp earth and fresh pine, and she felt her spirits lift as she made her way up the familiar path. As she walked, her mind wandered, her thoughts a blur of work, family, and the routines of everyday life. But then, as she rounded a bend in the trail, something caught her eye, a flash of brown, barely visible behind the thick trees. Anna froze. Her heart skipped, a mix of excitement and apprehension flooding her chest. The figure was larger now, more solid, and she could see the unmistakable shape of a bear moving through the underbrush. It was a bear, but not the same one. This one was different, stronger, its coat fuller, its body no longer gaunt from starvation. The bear turned toward her, and in that moment, Anna recognized it. It was the same bear, but it had changed. It had healed, grown stronger. Its eyes locked with hers, and this time, there was no fear. There was no hesitation. Instead, there was a strange familiarity in its gaze, as if it remembered her. Remembered the kindness she had shown months ago. Anna stood still, watching in awe as the bear moved closer, its large frame moving with purpose, the weight of its steps reverberating through the forest. She had no idea what to expect, but she didn't move. She waited, her heart pounding in her chest. When the bear reached her, it paused. For a moment, the two of them just stood there, facing each other in the quiet of the woods. Anna's mind raced, unsure of what would happen next. The bear sniffed the air, its nostrils flaring, and then, to her astonishment, it lowered its head and nudged something toward her. A small bundle wrapped in fur. Anna blinked in confusion, not understanding what she was seeing. The bear's gift. What was it? Slowly, carefully, Anna stepped forward, kneeling down to examine the bundle. She pulled back the fur, revealing a collection of wildflowers, vibrant and alive, nestled in a bed of moss. Tears welled up in Anna's eyes. The bear had returned not just for a simple reunion, but with a gift, an offering of something beautiful, something pure. It was a gesture she couldn't fully comprehend, but it didn't matter. The meaning was clear. The bear had come back to thank her, to show her that the kindness she had shown was not forgotten. Anna held the bundle close to her chest, overwhelmed by the rawness of the moment. The forest around her felt alive with energy, and for the first time in her life, she understood the true power of nature, the way it could offer something back when you least expected it. The bear watched her for a long while, its gaze steady, before it turned and began to walk away. Anna remained kneeling, the flowers pressed gently to her chest, her heart full. She knew that she had been a part of something extraordinary. The bear had returned not just to survive, but to show her the beauty of life's quiet moments, the small, delicate acts of kindness that could change everything. As the bear disappeared back into the trees, Anna stood slowly, still holding the flowers, and felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She had given the bear a chance to live, and in return, the forest had given her a gift, one that would stay with her forever. And as she made her way back down the trail, the flowers in her hands blooming with new life, Anna knew that the forest, with all its secrets and wonders, would always be a part of her. The bear had taught her that nature's gifts, though rare and fleeting, were always worth waiting for. Anna walked slowly down the trail, the wildflowers clutched tightly in her hands, their bright colors a stark contrast to the muted greens and browns of the forest. She felt a sense of connection to the earth beneath her feet, to the trees that towered above her, their branches swaying gently in the wind. Everything seemed to hum with life, as if the forest itself were alive, breathing alongside her. The gift from the bear, a simple yet profound offering, had left her feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Yet, despite the tranquility of the moment, her mind churned with questions. What did the bear's gift mean? Why had it come back after all this time? And why had it chosen her? The weight of those questions lingered in her mind, unanswered, as she continued to walk. The flowers in her hands seemed almost too fragile to hold, like something precious, delicate. She wasn't sure why, but she felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility toward them, as though the bear had entrusted her with something that needed protection. Anna knew that what had happened between her and the bear was something rare, something few would ever experience. She had seen wild animals before, but never had one come so close, never had one shared a moment of understanding so deep. The bear had been in pain, starving, on the brink of death when they first met. And yet, it had returned to her, healed, strong, and with a gift. The thought of that bond, however fleeting, stayed with her as she made her way back to the small cabin she called home, nestled at the edge of the forest. As she reached the cabin, she paused at the door, feeling a familiar unease settle over her. Something in the air felt different, charged, as though the world was waiting for something. She couldn't put her finger on it, but it was the same feeling she'd had when she first encountered the bear. The world had seemed to hold its breath, as if the forest itself had been waiting for this moment. She pushed open the door and stepped inside, the warmth of the cabin greeting her like an old friend. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, casting a flickering glow across the room. Anna set the wildflowers down carefully on the wooden table and sank into the chair by the fire. She stared at them for a long time, lost in thought, as the flames danced and flickered in the hearth. The fire's warmth felt comforting, but it didn't ease the tension in her chest. It was the tension of knowing that something had changed, something deep and unspoken. Her mind drifted back to the bear. She couldn't forget the way its eyes had met hers. That moment of recognition, of mutual understanding, had been profound. But what had the bear wanted to show her? Why had it come back with a gift? She couldn't shake the feeling that the bear had been trying to tell her something. Something beyond survival, beyond the simple act of feeding it when it was starving. Anna's thoughts were interrupted by the soft sound of a knock on the door. She froze, her heart skipping a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone. Who could it be? She rose from the chair and made her way to the door, her hand hovering over the handle. The knock came again, more insistent this time. She took a deep breath and opened the door, her eyes scanning the quiet landscape outside. To her surprise, there was no one there, just the soft whisper of the wind, the rustling of leaves in the trees. But then, as she turned to close the door, she noticed something lying on the ground just beyond the threshold. It was another bundle, this one wrapped in a thick, dark fur. Anna's heart pounded in her chest as she bent down and carefully picked it up. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped the bundle, revealing a small, delicate wooden carving. It was a bear, its body carved with incredible detail, each line and curve of its form speaking of both strength and grace. But what struck Anna most was the engraving on the bottom of the figure. It was simple but unmistakable. A single word, carved deeply into the wood. Survival. Anna's breath caught in her throat. The word felt like a weight, as if the bear had left it as a reminder. Something to carry with her. A message from the forest itself. The carving was beautiful, yet it felt like a riddle, something she wasn't sure she could fully decipher. Why had the bear left this for her? What did it mean? As she held the carving in her hands, a chill ran down her spine. The sensation that the forest was watching her, that the world around her was somehow waiting, intensified. She couldn't explain it, but she felt it in her bones. This moment was far from over. The bear had come back to her not just once, but twice. And with each visit, it had left her with something more, something that felt almost sacred. But why? Anna turned the carving over in her hands. The word survival etched into the wood like a permanent mark on her soul. She felt as though the answer to her questions was right there, just out of reach. What did survival mean to the bear? What had it been trying to show her? The wind picked up outside, and Anna stepped back from the door, closing it softly behind her. She set the carving on the table next to the wildflowers, the two items now side by side. She stared at them for a long time, her mind swirling with unanswered questions. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden sound of a distant howl. A wolf's cry, sharp and haunting in the silence of the forest. The sound echoed through the trees, a reminder of the wildness that surrounded her. Anna's breath hitched in her chest as she stared out the window, the howl fading into the distance. She had always found comfort in the sounds of the forest, the birds, the wind, the rustling of leaves. But tonight, There was something unsettling about it. Something in the air felt different. As she turned away from the window, her gaze fell on the wildflowers again. She reached out and touched them gently, the soft petals delicate beneath her fingers. The forest had given her a gift of survival. She couldn't explain it, but she knew that the bear's return, the carving, the wildflowers, it all meant something. She had been a part of something larger than herself, something she hadn't fully understood until now. But as the days passed, Anna began to feel an overwhelming sense of dread. The peaceful solitude of her cabin, the calm of the forest, it all felt like a facade. Every time she ventured into the woods, she could sense it. The watchful eyes of the forest, the feeling that something was just beyond her understanding. The tension that had first come over her on that initial hike, when she had encountered the starving bear, hadn't gone away. It had only grown stronger. Something was coming, something that would change everything. It wasn't long before Anna realized that the bear's gift wasn't just a token of thanks. It was a warning. The forest had changed, and she had become a part of it. One evening, as Anna prepared dinner in the cabin, she felt the air grow cold, an unnatural chill that seemed to seep into her bones. The fire crackled weakly in the hearth, the warmth it provided almost non-existent against the sudden cold. She glanced out the window, her heart racing as the shadows of the trees seemed to stretch unnaturally long, reaching toward her cabin. Then she saw it. The figure was large, standing just beyond the tree line, its shape indistinct in the twilight. But as her eyes adjusted, she could see it clearly. A bear. The same bear. And behind it, another figure emerged. Smaller, but unmistakably familiar. Her breath caught in her throat as the cub, grown now, stepped forward, its eyes locking with hers. The bear had returned, and it had brought something with it. Something far more than a simple gift. Anna stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind racing. She knew that this moment wasn't just another encounter with the bear. It was something more. Something had changed. The bear, with its deep, knowing eyes, turned its gaze to Anna one last time, as if to say goodbye. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, it retreated into the woods, the cub following closely behind. Anna stood there for a long time, her mind reeling, trying to piece together the puzzle the forest had given her. The bear had returned not just to survive, but to show her the depth of the connection between them. The forest had whispered its secrets to her, but now the true test was yet to come. What did survival mean now? What would she do with the gift she had been given? The night felt heavier than usual. The chill in the air was sharp, the winds whispering through the trees, carrying with them an eerie sense of something unsettled. Anna sat by the fire, the glow flickering across her face, but the warmth that usually comforted her now seemed distant. The strange encounter with the bear and its cub had left her feeling disoriented, as if she had been pulled into a story she hadn't fully understood yet. It was more than just a wild animal encounter. It was something deeper, something beyond her comprehension. The carving, the word survival, the bear's gaze. It all felt like a riddle, one that she wasn't sure she was ready to solve. She had tried to sleep that night, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the bear again. Its eyes, the way it looked at her, the way it seemed to recognize something in her. It wasn't just hunger or fear in its eyes. It was something else. It was a connection. It was like it was saying, "You've seen me, and now you are a part of this." But what did that mean? And what would she do with that knowledge? The forest had given her something, but it was still so unclear. As the hours passed, Anna couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was a feeling she'd experienced on the trail that first day, that strange pull toward the unknown. But now it was stronger. The wind howled outside, and the trees seemed to creak, groan, as if the forest itself were restless. She could hear the distant calls of wolves. Too close, too familiar, too haunting. It felt as if nature had woven itself into her existence in a way she hadn't expected. The flowers and the carving sat on the table beside her. She had studied them all evening, as though she could unlock their meaning just by staring at them. The wildflowers were vibrant, alive, yet fragile. They seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the cabin, as if they were alive with some hidden energy. The carving was another puzzle, its intricate detail beautiful but cryptic. The word survival carved into it wasn't just a reminder. It felt like an instruction. There was a part of Anna that wanted to run, to leave the cabin and the forest behind, to go back to her old life, to the world she knew. But deep down, she knew she couldn't. Something had changed, and there was no going back. The next day, Anna ventured into the forest again. She couldn't explain why she felt compelled to return, but she knew she had to. The air felt thick with anticipation, as if the forest was holding its breath, waiting for her to do something, anything, to reveal what had been unfolding since that first encounter. She could hear the wolves in the distance again, their calls sharp and echoing through the trees, but she didn't feel afraid. If anything, their cries seemed to comfort her, reminding her that she wasn't alone in this strange world she had found herself in. As she walked deeper into the forest, the path winding around the trees, Anna tried to clear her mind. Her thoughts were a storm of questions. What did the bear want from her? What was this connection? And why had the forest chosen her? Was she meant to help it, or was it the other way around? And then there was the carving. The word survival still lingered in her mind, echoing in her thoughts. She had seen what survival meant to the bear, but what about her? The trees around her grew thicker, the forest more dense, and the silence grew oppressive. The air felt heavier, as if the trees were watching, as if the ground beneath her feet was alive with some ancient energy. Anna pressed on, the path narrowing as she ventured further into the woods. Her breath was shallow, the cool air stinging her lungs, but she kept moving forward. It wasn't long before she spotted something, a flash of brown through the trees. Her heart leapt into her throat as she froze, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. The bear. It was there, just ahead of her, standing motionless in the middle of the clearing. It wasn't the same bear as before. It was larger now, stronger, its coat thick and rich with color, but it was unmistakably the same. The eyes, those eyes that had stared into hers months ago, were now filled with something different. There was no fear in them, no hesitation. Instead, there was an understanding, a recognition. Anna stood frozen, unable to move, her mind racing. The bear hadn't attacked her. It hadn't run away, simply stood there watching her. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, a mixture of fear and awe. The forest had brought her here, to this moment, to this animal. And as much as she wanted to turn and run, she couldn't. Slowly, the bear began to move toward her, its steps heavy but calm. Anna's breath caught in her throat as the bear closed the distance between them, and for a moment, all she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat. The forest around her was eerily silent. The wind had stopped, the wolves' cries had faded. It was just her and the bear now, and in this moment, Anna felt a sense of deep connection to the wildness of the world around her. When the bear was just a few feet away, it stopped. Its gaze never left hers. It lowered its head slightly, as if offering her a silent greeting, an acknowledgement. The same sense of recognition, the same deep understanding, passed between them again. Anna could feel it in her bones. This wasn't just an animal. It was something more. And then, without warning, the bear turned and began to walk away, its large form moving gracefully through the trees, its fur rippling in the dappled sunlight. Anna stood rooted to the spot, watching it go, a mix of relief and confusion washing over her. What had just happened? Was it a message? A test? The forest once again was quiet. Anna stood there, unable to move, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. It wasn't until the bear had disappeared completely from sight that she took a deep breath and turned to walk back to the cabin. But something had shifted in her. The questions she had been carrying, the doubts, the confusion, hadn't been answered, but they had been made clearer. There was something more at play here, something beyond her understanding. She wasn't just a hiker in the woods anymore. She was a part of something larger. The bear had shown her that. Over the next few days, Anna couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. The bear had returned to her, and with it had come a deep sense of purpose. The carving, the word, survival, the flowers. It was all connected, and Anna knew that she had to learn what it all meant. But she also knew that it wasn't something that could be figured out in a single moment. It would take time, patience, and a deeper connection to the world around her. She found herself walking the trail again, day after day, trying to make sense of everything she had seen and felt. The forest had become both her refuge and her challenge, a place where she had to confront the mysteries that lay within it and within herself. And with each step she took, she could feel the bear's presence, guiding her, watching over her. But as the days passed, the feeling of something lurking just beyond her grasp intensified. The forest wasn't just a place of beauty. It was a place of trials, of lessons, and Anna was beginning to realize that she had only scratched the surface. The connection she felt with the bear wasn't just a coincidence. It was part of something much larger, something that was unfolding before her in ways she didn't fully understand yet. It wasn't until one evening, when the moon was high in the sky and the air was still, that she finally understood. As she sat in front of the fire, the carving resting on the table beside her, Anna realized that the bear's gift wasn't just an object. It was a challenge. The word survival wasn't just about the bear. It was about her too. The forest had shown her what it meant to survive, to adapt, to become one with the world around her. And as the fire crackled in the hearth, Anna knew that her journey was far from over. She was part of the forest now, part of something ancient and wild. And as the night stretched on, she felt the forest calling to her once more, beckoning her into the unknown, into the mysteries that waited just beyond the trees. The bear had shown her the way, and now it was time for her to walk it. The forest was alive with sound and color as Anna stood at the edge of the clearing, the weight of the past few days heavy in her chest. The encounter with the bear, the carving, the strange feeling of being watched. Everything had led her to this moment. She had thought she was just a hiker, a solitary soul in the wilderness, but now she knew that the forest, the animals, the earth itself, it was all connected in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. It had drawn her in, shown her something deeper, and left her with a sense of purpose that she couldn't shake. The mystery of the bear, of the survival carving, had become a riddle she couldn't leave unsolved. Today, she was determined to find the answers. The sun was setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the ground. The air was thick with the smell of pine and damp earth, and a low hum of energy seemed to pulse in the trees around her. The forest was watching her. She could feel it in her bones. Anna had been walking the trail for hours, her steps growing heavier with each passing moment. She had spent days trying to understand the connection between the bear and herself, but the truth felt just beyond her reach. There was something in the air tonight, a shift she couldn't quite place, but it tugged at her like an invisible thread, pulling her deeper into the woods. She had followed the familiar path, the one that led to the clearing where she had first encountered the bear, the place where everything had begun. But when she arrived, she stopped short. The clearing was quiet. The bear wasn't there, but the atmosphere felt charged. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, from behind the trees, came a sound. A rustling, slow at first, but unmistakable. A massive shape emerged, moving silently between the trunks of the trees. Anna's heart raced as she recognized the form, the bear. But this time, it wasn't just the bear she had encountered months ago. This was something else. Something more. The bear was larger now, its coat fuller, its eyes even deeper than before. Its gaze met hers, and for a moment, everything else faded. The weight of the past few months, the questions, the doubts, they all vanished in that instant. The bear knew her. It recognized her. And in that recognition, Anna felt something stir inside her. A deep understanding. A call to something larger than herself. The bear's movements were graceful, almost ceremonial as it stepped closer, its massive frame barely making a sound. The forest held its breath, and Anna stood frozen, her feet rooted to the earth as if the very ground beneath her was somehow binding her to the moment. The bear did not approach aggressively. It did not seem to have any agenda but to simply be there, to simply exist alongside her. And then, as if in some ancient ritual, the bear lowered its head and nudged something toward Anna. It was the same fur-wrapped bundle, the one she had received the night of their first encounter. But this time, when Anna unwrapped it, she found something entirely different. A thick, smooth stone lay nestled in the fur, its surface dark and glossy, like obsidian. Anna's breath caught in her throat as she held it in her hands. The stone was warm, almost as if it had been heated by some internal energy. She ran her fingers over its surface, feeling the smoothness beneath her touch. There was something about it, something ancient, something powerful. The bear watched her silently, its gaze steady, as if it were waiting for her to make sense of the gift. Anna's mind raced. The stone, what could it mean? It wasn't just a gift. It was a message, a key to understanding everything that had happened in the forest. The bear had given her something that was as much a part of the earth as it was a symbol of the wild. Survival, the word that had been etched into the carving. The lessons she had learned from the bear, the lessons about life, death, and the fragility of existence. They were all contained in this stone. In this gift, the bear's deep, rumbling growl broke Anna from her thoughts. It wasn't an aggressive sound, but more like a low hum, resonating in the air. The bear seemed to beckon her, urging her to follow. And for the first time in her life, Anna knew what she had to do. She had been a part of the forest, a witness to its secrets. But now, it was time for her to take that step deeper into the mystery. With the stone still in her hand, she began to walk, the bear pacing beside her, its steps silent in the underbrush. The path was narrow, barely discernible through the thick trees and undergrowth, but Anna didn't need to see the way. The forest seemed to open up for her, guiding her, leading her into the heart of something she couldn't yet understand. The air around them grew thick with a sense of anticipation, the stillness of the night broken only by the soft sound of their movements. Every step felt significant, as if the ground beneath her feet was part of some ancient story, a story that had been unfolding long before she had ever set foot in these woods. As they moved deeper into the forest, the trees grew older, their trunks wider, their branches twisted and gnarled with age. Anna's footsteps slowed as she took in the beauty of the place, the wildness of it, the raw power that seemed to emanate from the very earth. This was not just a forest. This was something sacred, something that had been here long before her, and would remain long after she was gone. The bear paused in front of a large, flat rock, its surface etched with symbols that Anna couldn't quite make out in the fading light. The air here was thick with energy, as if the very earth itself were alive with it. The stone in Anna's hand pulsed, its warmth intensifying as she approached the rock. The bear sat back on its haunches, watching her with that same deep, knowing gaze. Anna stepped forward, her heart racing in her chest. She placed the stone gently on the surface of the rock. And then, as if guided by some unseen force, she knelt beside it, her fingers brushing against the cold surface of the stone. In that instant, the ground beneath her seemed to shift. The air around her hummed with a low, vibrating sound, and the symbols on the stone began to glow, faintly at first, but growing brighter with each passing moment. Anna's breath caught in her throat as the ground beneath her feet trembled, just slightly, as if something deep within the earth were awakening. And then, as the stone pulsed with energy, the forest around her seemed to change. The trees, once dark and shadowed, were now bathed in a soft, golden light, their trunks gleaming as if they were alive with the very essence of the earth itself. The wind stirred, but it wasn't the same wind she had felt before. This was something different, something ancient. The bear moved closer to her, its eyes locked on hers. There was no fear, no aggression, only a deep, silent understanding, as if the bear knew this moment was the culmination of everything they had shared. The forest, the animals, the earth, they were all connected, and Anna was no longer just a visitor. She was a part of it. And then, as the light grew brighter, Anna understood. The gift wasn't just about survival. It was about connection. It was about becoming one with the earth, understanding the delicate balance of life and death, and accepting that survival was not just a matter of strength. It was a matter of understanding, of respect for the wild, and for the delicate threads that wove all living things together. As the light faded and the symbols on the stone dimmed, Anna felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. The forest had given her its secret. The bear had shown her the way, and now she knew what she had to do. She was no longer just a witness to the forest's mysteries. She was a part of it. The bear turned and slowly began to walk away, its steps graceful, its form melding into the trees. Anna stood, the stone still in her hand, feeling the weight of everything that had transpired. She knew that she had been given a gift that could never be fully understood, but one that would shape her forever. The forest had spoken, and Anna had listened. As she turned to follow the bear, she felt the weight of her decision settle in. The journey was far from over. There was more to learn, more to understand. But for the first time, she didn't feel lost. She felt at home. The forest, the animals, the earth, they were all a part of her now. And she was a part of them. The wild, untamed world that had once seemed so distant and alien now felt like a part of her soul. And as the bear disappeared into the shadows of the trees, Anna knew that her life had been irrevocably changed. She wasn't just a hiker anymore. She was something more. She was a part of the forest. And the forest, in turn, was a part of her. The journey had just begun.